Hello, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today in my latest deep dive series, I'm going to explore the summer solstice of the 21st of June at 4:32 a.m. Universal Central Time. Now, the Western tropical zodiac is based on the fixed constellations. So in other words, it's based on the seasons. The journey begins, of course, on the vernal equinox at 0 degrees Aries. That first quadrant features Aries, which is fire, and cardinal. It initiates. It's followed by the securing energies of Taurus, about our foundations. That's earth, and it's fixed, very stable. And then we have the mutable energies of Gemini, which is air, very flexible, quick-witted, and very much to do with communication. So as we get to the sign of Cancer on the summer solstice, symbolically, we're looking to try to find more comfort, more security. This sign is governed by the moon. It's also water, but it is cardinal. Sometimes people think that Cancer people are just nurturers because of the moon, but Cancer people often end up in positions of great authority, can be brilliant managers and supervisors, and can also work very effectively for themselves. So the next quadrant of the year is based on Cancer to see us try to create more security, more comfort, more emotional awareness, to link with our families the best we can. It's followed by the wonderful charismatic energies of Leo, which of course is fixed, it's fire, and it is a sign which is very much to do with sociability, it's to do with affection, it can be to do with creativity, with interacting with others in a very glamorous way. And the last sign of this particular quadrant is Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. It's mutable, so it's flexible, but it's very much about discrimination, about the detail. The logic of Mercury asks us to define what's really important. So each parts of these astrological journey are teaching us a lesson or giving us tools to deal with our life in a particular way. Now, when you have a natal horoscope done, and if you want to get your natal horoscope for free, please see the link beneath this video. The 360-degree wheel is divided into 12 sections. These are known as the houses. And symbolically, house 1 is Arian, house 2 is Taurian, house 3 is Geminian, and so on. So we're talking about the energies of house 4 here with Cancer initially. So it is trying to find that sense of peace, calm, of feeling protected. And the lovely thing about this event, of course, is that it's going to see us move from the fast-moving sign of Gemini, which is very much to do with flexing our minds, and it may see us wanting to find more calm, more tranquility, a little bit more security. And that security can be physical or emotional. But I'm showing the wheel on the screen now, so you can see the sun's at 0 degrees in Cancer, and at this particular location in Greenwich we have an ascendant which is very late in Gemini, so it's nearly 26 degrees Gemini. So the sun beautifully is in the first house, very much about initiation. That's a kind of Aries vibe, if you like, but remember all the cardinal signs, and the other two are Libra and Capricorn, are all about initiation, leadership, action. But the desire of the sign of Cancer is very much to find that shelter, that comfort, that security. Now, if we see this chart in the whole, we can see that the moon position is actually at 9 degrees in the sign of Scorpio, which of course is also a water sign. And we have Jupiter at the top of the chart in the 10th house in its home zone of Pisces, but it is in retrograde. So we have a broadish, and it is pretty broad in terms of the moon, a broadish water grand trine, which is very enabling. The problem with this particular event, however, is that if you look where Mars is on the screen, it's in the sign of Leo, where it's very proud and gives us a lot of desire to show off entertain ourselves, interact with people in a playful way, but it's being opposed on the other side of the heavens by Saturn. And if you see, Saturn's in the 9th house of travel, higher education, and Mars is in the part of this chart to do with shorter travels, how we think, communications on a daily basis. But then look to your right, the moon at 9 degrees Scorpio is actually interacting with Saturn and Mars in a T-square. And then if you look across the chart, you can see that Uranus is opposing that moon, but also a right angle still to Saturn. That goes on until the 23rd of July. But also Uranus is squaring Mars. So we have a grand fixed cross. And this is particularly complex. So as we enter this second quadrant of the year, I do feel that there can be some challenges ahead. Also, we can see that Venus is in an opposition with Pluto across the 8th and the 2nd houses. Now that suggests our desire for all the good things in life, whether it's intimacy of a sexual kind, whether it's nice holidays, whether it's consumer goods that have a little bit of luxury to them. There can be a strong desire to get what we want as this event manifests itself. But I feel that there is the potential for some kind of block, for things not to happen quite as quickly as some of us may desire. Now, of course, Neptune had been in a square with the Sun, and that's passed, so that's good. And Neptune does actually forge a really quite beautiful angle to both Pluto and Venus. So that's saying to me, you know, if we can try to embrace the more spiritual plane, it's a way to deal with some of the obstacles that this grand fixed cross can create. Because if you think about it, this is like a mini year, because you've got 4 quadrants that are all competing with one another. So Uranus is in a restless angle with Mars, which can make us reckless, but Saturn's on the other side of the heavens, applying a massive handbrake to Mars and also Uranus, which can create enormous frustration. And then the moon's in the very deep, passionate but feeling sign of Scorpio. So whatever the circumstances that we're encountering at this time, and it's in that opposition with Uranus, again, that's making us very restless if we are penned in any way. I think however much we try to find that sense of peace, that sense of tranquility, that security, physical or emotional, we may have to factor in quite a degree of patience on the actual point when this event begins. And I think this energy is going to continue in some way. It will decline to some degree over these next 3 months as we make our way through the sign of Cancer, the glamorous sign of Leo, and then the more practical and precise and virtuous sign of Virgo, the next phase of the journey. But I feel that this suggests that there is going to be some limitation around our ability to mix and mingle, move around freely, and of course with Jupiter right at the top of the chart in the 10th house but in retrograde, that suggests anything to do with travel may slow down. If you see on the other side of the heavens at 4 degrees in the sign of Virgo, in the 4th house of the home, is the midpoint of this chart. So the midpoint of this chart, despite it being a Cancerian event, is very Virgoian, opposite Jupiter. Now that can give us a high hope to be of generous spirit, to try to in some way amp up the vibrancy of our situation in a way which balances the practicalities of life, Virgo, with our emotional and spiritual needs coming through Jupiter. But I think that grand fixed cross makes this event particularly complex. And therefore, just to paraphrase the French philosopher Jean de La Fontaine, patience and the passage of time will do more than strength and fury. And I think therefore we have to understand the wider implications of what we're all involved in. We're much more connected in a way because of technology and because the planet is so much smaller now, because people travel a lot more than ever they used to do. we are therefore going to be immediately affected in quite a joined up way by this event. However, what the summer solstice does do is does give us an opportunity to think that Western tropical astrology is unique. It isn't like Vedic astrology, which takes into account the precession of the equinoxes. Therefore, it is based on a construct that is Mediterranean. It's very ancient. And how does this come out in tests when we think about prediction or forecasting, when we compare it to Vedic astrology? Well, do you know, the truth of that is it comes out very well in the studies that have been done in terms of accuracy. So even at that symbolic moment when the Zodiac, the circle of the animals, was first created, it is still workable in such, I see this every single day with clients. It's so amazing how astrology works. Now, the other thing to say about Cancer is to go beyond that archetype that it's just chained to the kitchen sink making apple pie and crumbles and all the rest of it. Cancerian people are so much more capable than that. But also the 0-degree point means that in terms of the 12th harmonic, so it's a Vedic astrology technique called dwarves. So the first 2.5 degrees of each sign is actually particularly redolent of that sign. So it's double Cancerian, but it is in the first house. So Cancerian energy can be so much to do with leadership, and it is to do with protectiveness. So if we do have to go back into a slightly more sheltered way of living, being a little bit more conscious of space, keeping a bit of distance, being more conscious of our behaviour and how it impacts on other people, I think Cancerian energy is asking us to be steadfast, because Cancer people can be incredibly tenacious. Now, they don't like confrontation, and that's why the symbolism of the crab is fascinating, because crabs tend to go sideways to avoid that direct conflict. But of course, if they're really provoked enough, they will sort of run forwards and give you a mighty pinch with those pincers. And I think for Cancer people, because of the transits that have been going through the sign of Capricorn since 2008 in the guise of Pluto, last year in the guise, and the year before, since late 2017 with Saturn, last year with Jupiter, it's been a lot of challenges for Cancerian people. But Pluto in this particular chart is actually in a quincunx with the position of the Sun. And Pluto's in the 8th house, and I think that just takes us back to that transformation that's going on. Because it's opposite Venus, that's going to give our desire side of our nature an enormous electric charge from this event. But I think really Pluto and the Sun, when they're in a quincunx, it can increase sexual desire big time. People who have this in their natal horoscopes have a kind of aura that some people can find a little troubling and a little difficult to be around. They can sort of create their own reality, can be very exciting people. But I think just trying to marshal the need for nurture, security, protectiveness in this very complex world that we're living in, aware of this fixed ground cross, which means that whatever we seem to do, there seems to be an instant ramification. Now, please stay with me, and I'm going to share your zodiac sign forecast for each of the 12 signs, starting with Aries. Now, Aries, you're very much in keeping with the general theme of this event, because of course your sign is the first house of the Western tropical zodiac, so therefore this obviously is about the very typical energies of Cancer. So the next 4 weeks can be a great time for you to try to be in touch with your feeling side. You still have Neptune and Jupiter in your 12th house, so you're being very encouraged, and you have Chiron, the comet, the wounded healer, in your own sign. So you're being very encouraged to keep working at understanding your shadow side, your anxieties. But if you need to take a pause, withdraw a little bit from others, take a breath, or take some time out to have some treatments, some massage, or talk to someone about how you feel, that can be very, very healing for you. But this can work at a a physical level as well. So if you are moving home, settling into a new abode in the next 4 weeks, your timing is absolutely impeccable. Now, Taurus, for you, the summer solstice occurs in your third solar house. This is about ideas. So it's ideas with feeling because of the emotion of Cancer and the moon rulership. So it's saying, if you're discussing something, make sure you're not just in your mind, in your logic, you're also in your heart. Now, that may come very naturally to you as an individual, but because you are really directly caught up in this grand fixed cross, if you do have inner planets right caught up in the crossfire, if you like, of that activity, there may be quite a lot of electricity but frustration going around. So the third house controls your nervous system. So if things aren't flowing quite as quickly as you would like, try to take some time out to have some quiet moments, just to let go a little bit of any tensions. Be aware of your shoulders. If you've got someone loving who can give your shoulders a little bit of a massage, or you can have a treatment, that would be a very good thing to do. But your mind is definitely going to be stepping up a gear. It's just that that grand fixed cross suggests that you might not be able to initiate all your ideas straight away. Now, for you, Gemini, I think having the sun move into your subsequent sign from yours, where it's been for the previous 4 weeks, is an opportunity to think about your foundations, but also your emotions around your foundations. So you're wanting to feel secure. So being around people or situations that are very familiar to you could actually be very reassuring. But also you may be thinking more actively about how you earn money, but also how you spend money. And that may be a big part of your thinking. You do have Mercury, your ruler, and the North Node in your sign on this event. And I think that's really very, very useful to you. But the grand fixed cross for you tucks up. So it's in your 12th, and it's in your 3rd, it's in your 6th, and it's in your 9th houses. So quite a lot of psychological energy still washing round. Important to just continue to embrace the feeling side of your nature. And obviously the sun in Cancer is perfect for that. Now, Cancer, for you, this is fabulous. And if you are lucky enough to be born on the first day of Cancer or around that point, then this can be a glorious new beginning. Now, in Draconic astrology, and I will be doing a special on this, if you like, your secret zodiac sign, your karmic zodiac sign, my midpoint is 0 degrees in Cancer. So, and I also have a lot of energies in the 4th house. So I have a very Cancerian type of nature, really. I love home, love peace and tranquility, and being in nature. So if you're somebody who wants to make some changes in your world, don't underestimate your leadership abilities. You're absolutely brilliant at managing resources, people, functions, whatever it is, you make it flow because you're so good at being very inclusive. You understand it's not just about the process management. It's not just about the maths or providing the product. It's how it's all joined together with your people skills. That little intuition, the slice of instinct that you have about how people are thinking. So it makes you a brilliant personnel manager as well as a brilliant practical manager. And that's why you're so gifted at managing resources and people. But this could be an opportunity to start something afresh. But with Mercury and the North Node tucked away in your 12th house, if there's something that you have been thinking about of a more sensitive nature in recent weeks, don't deny yourself the chance to continue to work with that. I'm not someone who thinks that our emotions or our thoughts all have to be 100% in one direction all of the time. We can have different things, different strands going on that we can be watchful of, moving some on, watching other things, just reflecting on other things. But this can be a time of action for you, but mindful action, I feel. That brings us to Leo. Well, of course, having the sun move into this location gives you a 4-week opportunity to dive deep into your more spiritual side. perhaps to reflect a little bit on the past year, to prepare yourself for when the sun in 4 weeks' time moves into your sign, and you're going to feel a glorious renewal, a rebirth. The sun rules the sign of Leo, but its passage through the sign of Cancer asks you to step back a little bit. But because you've got Mars in your own sign at the moment, you may be reluctant to do that. But if you step forwards in too much of an assertive way at the moment, I think you could kind of encounter quite a lot of blockages and obstacles. Things aren't flowing quite as well as you'd like. So it may be better just to float back, just watch things, observe, do some thinking, do some deep research. If you need to, prayer, meditation, all those kind of things can be very, very healing for you. You're preparing yourself to prime up an opportunity to move forwards when the sun comes into your sign. And remember, in the first 3 weeks of July, Venus and Mars are in your sign too, which is absolutely fantastic. So I think new things are beginning to develop, but you may have to do some behind the scenes soundings, do some research, just mull over exactly how you want to go forwards. So if things aren't moving quite at the pace you want, try not to get too frustrated. Now Virgo, having the sun move into the sign of Cancer, is all about friendship, but it's all about your interaction with the group. But it's also about honouring your individuality within that group. It's not just about being caught up in their needs, it's about being individual. So it's, if you like, a worker cooperative. You can be yourself, share skills, share collaboration. Superb. So great if you do want to get together, if it's possible, with others in some kind of mutually beneficial way. Or it could be a great time to celebrate the things you have in common in all sorts of relationships, and not be so focused on what's not quite so ideal, which of course we can all get into at times. But the 11th house is about the future, the long-term future. And of course what's been going on with the Saturn-Uranus square is that you have been feeling rather oppressed by those everyday constraints and routines. That if you are feeling a sense of limitation, there's a part of you that wants to be more free than perhaps you've ever felt before, and have a more flexible lifestyle which can see you be more spontaneous. And I think the sun feeds into that. It's just saying to you, feel what you need, feel how you're going to connect with others, and that will be very valuable to you. Now, of course, the midpoint of this event is also in your sign, and at 4 degrees in Virgo, the angle it's forging to the sun is lovely. This is very enabling, and therefore there's a lot for you to gain. I think you can gain from this particular event as much as any zodiac sign, to be honest. So it's all to go for you. Like us all, you're going to still be constrained by that grand fixed cross, which is really awkward because we've got 4 different quadrants that all interact, all can provide some kind of limitation or frustration. But for you in general, there's a great opportunity to envision the future you want and to act on it. But I think it may just need to go forwards in a steady, step-by-step way. That brings us to Libra. Now, for you, the sun moving into the 10th house is particularly important because you're also a cardinal sign. So your cardinality is celebrated by the autumn equinox, but it means the sun for you is your 10th house, your midheaven. So this is where you link with the world at large. This is where you show ambition and authority. So terrific opportunities to focus on your career. You can also see your ruler, Venus, is in the sign of Cancer as this event occurs, but it is opposed by Pluto. Yes, Pluto's been causing us Libra. I have the ascendant, mine's at 23 degrees, right on speaker, the fixed star. So you can see that I've been manifestly affected by Pluto and Saturn in recent times. And there could be something to do with a home-based issue, a family member, an emotional constraint that has been really causing quite a logjam. And because it's in opposition with with Venus, I beg your pardon, however much you may apply oodles of charm and diplomacy, something may still require dealing with the awkward squad. That's the best way that I can put it. And you're still being encouraged to be a little bit more assertive. So for you, the fixed ground cross goes Moon 2nd, Saturn 5th, Uranus in 8th, and Mars in the 11th. So quite complex. And like us all for this particular event, I don't think we can rush forwards. We have to draw in the energy of Cancer, which is to be measured, to avoid confrontation where possible, but to take action where we can be collegiate, where we're listening to our gut instinct, the moon, how it feels, but don't show any lack of ambition because someone around you or close to you would rather keep the status quo as it is, or there's games or some kind of bad vibe around your immediate locality. That really wouldn't be a surprise. Now that brings us to Scorpio. Now for you, Scorpio, obviously the cardinal sign of Cancer is your 9th house, which is about travel, it's about exploration, it's about widening your horizons, it's about being more adventurous. But this fixed ground cross really does play into your sign, particularly with the moon in the sign of Scorpio. So if you do have any inner planets around about this 9, 10, 12 degrees of the moon, Saturn, Uranus or Mars, it could feel a bit stuck still. So that need to go off and travel, do something off the cuff, more spontaneous. You're a fixed sign too. You like things to be steady and stable, but this is pushing you to shake things up a bit. And you might be able to do it, but I think the constraints that we may all have imposed upon us in some way or another, however subtle they may be, could feel a bit oppressive. But what no one can contain is your mind. And the 9th house is about higher philosophy. It's about higher education. If you want to do some kind of self-learning course in the comfort of your home, this is a wonderful month for you to try to do that. Which brings us to Sagittarius. Now, the fixed point of Cancer, the summer solstice for you, is the 8th house cusp. So that's about transformations at a deep level. But you have the moon in the 12th house, psychology, Saturn 3rd house, everyday movement, Uranus 6th house, organisation, and Mars in the 9th house of you just wanting to be free, 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 and absolutely no constraints whatsoever. So yeah, it's a tough one for you too, but the sun in this location does give you the chance to dive deep. You're a sign that loves the big canvas. You love to travel, you love to learn knowledge. Sagittarius people seem to know everything, it seems to me. Is that because my wife's a Sagittarius? I think it might be part of it. But I have known friends in pubs and that who are incredibly knowledgeable. Sagittarians have a thirst for knowledge. But I think your thirst for knowledge over the next 4 weeks is going to be more psychological. It's going to be more to do with what affects your soul, your mortality. It can be at a more practical level, your savings, your investments, your business ideas. But because of the complexity of that fixed ground cross, you need to steady as you go, but some deep changes. And it could be around a property matter, it could be triggered by this event. Now Capricorn, obviously you're a cardinal sign too, the last quadrant of the year. And yours is triggered by the winter solstice. So you're at the other end of the polarity of the summer solstice. So this is interesting for you. The sun in Cancer is about relationships for you. So the next 4 weeks is a great opportunity to think about relationships. And because this event has got Venus in your 7th house and you've got Pluto in your own sign, if there is somebody that you're really interested in, despite the fact that you can run on the shy side, you like to be very protective of your security, often in a material way, you will like to be good-humoured and project an aura of competency. But I think the sun in your 7th house is asking you, what could you gain if you were a bit more vulnerable or vulnerable enough to take the risk of asking someone out on a date, if that's what you would like to do, or if you'd like to discuss with your partner how you could transform your relationship in a way which is mutually beneficial. This is a time when you can set your boundaries as well around all sorts of relationships. It's when you can also be competitive. But I think the Venus-Pluto opposition is really instructive. If you really want to connect with someone, particularly in a sexual way, this next month could throw up some surprises. You may be pushed outside that framework of your life, which is very ordered, organised and in control, to do something a bit more daring, a little bit more on the wild side. It will be interesting to see how you do. Now, Aquarius, you kind of get caught up with the energy of Pluto just being very, very near to your sign. Now, you can see from the wheel earlier that the 9th house cusp is at 29 degrees 35 minutes, so just tucked up behind 0 degrees Aquarius. So basically the 9th house cusp of exploration, higher ideals, is clashing with it's in a quincunx with the 1st house cusp at 25:48 Gemini. So I feel for you, the 6th house where Cancer is very much about routines, organisation, health, fitness, diet. It can be about your life structure. It can be about where you can be a bit more virtuous. It could be where you provide services to other people. But it may be that you're going to reform some part of your existence over the next 4 weeks in quite a powerful way. I think it can be very exciting for you. But because of that fixed grand cross affecting your sign so powerfully, particularly if you have got planets around Saturn, it may be that the changes you're going to make are not going to be without a little bit of discomfort. You know the old saying, no gain without pain. Sorry to recycle that, but there may be an element of truth around that. But the part of fortune is also very close to Saturn in Aquarius, and Saturn and the part of fortune are forging brilliant links to the North Node and also Mercury. So there are chinks of opportunity here, definitely. And that brings us to Pisces. And the most glorious thing about this chart, Pisces, is the sun gets seriously playful for you, but it's also forging that joyous link to Jupiter in your sign. And also Neptune in your sign is in a wonderful link to Venus. So this could be a summer solstice that actually makes your heart soar. It won't necessarily be without the odd complication because of that fixed grand cross that's influencing everyone. And of course, with Saturn in the 12th house, that's a tough place for Saturn to be. That's evoking anything to do with your deepest fears and limitations. But there's a lot for you to go for here, a lot for you to flow with. And if you have been feeling a little bit more introverted or withdrawn from others recently, if it's possible in the territory that you live in, I think you're going to want to go out and be much more playful over the next 4 weeks. So that summarises the summer solstice, the second cardinal quadrant of the year, the Western tropical zodiac based on the seasons. And the big news is the sun trining Jupiter, a wonderful influence, the fixed grand cross, which is mighty tough for us all. We have a wonderful angle between Venus and Neptune, and the midpoint is in the rather precise sign of Virgo. So it falls to all of us to try to find some marginal gains in whatever our situations are, whatever we find confronts us, to try to find some ways that we can just keep taking some steps forwards. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay safe, good luck, and goodbye.